The content in this video is based on factual, real-life events and public records. All opinions expressed are for educational and documentary purposes only. Viewer discretion is advised, as some scenes may depict sensitive content. This video is intended for informative purposes and complies with YouTube's guidelines. What if the most dangerous part of prison wasn't the other inmates, but the food on your plate? Inside American prisons, a hidden war is waged every single day. A war for survival against meals that are often spoiled, dangerously contaminated, and barely enough to keep you alive. We're talking maggot-infested kitchens and food so bad it's become a weapon. Inmates are forced to get creative, using smuggled commissary items to cook up their own meals, known as spreads, just to get the nutrients they need. This isn't just about hunger. It's about dignity and the will to live. From hoarding salt packets to bartering for a can of tuna, this is the untold story of a broken system, where every single bite is a fight for life. If you enjoy real, gripping prison documentaries and true stories, don't forget to like this video, leave a comment, and share it with your friends and family. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss more shocking and exclusive content. The reality of prison meals in the United States. Prison food is far from the meals most of us take for granted. For inmates, every day begins and ends with a struggle to consume enough calories to survive while avoiding illness from contaminated food. The experience inside a prison kitchen is a stark reminder that survival in these walls goes beyond avoiding violence. It starts with the very food meant to sustain life. Prisons across the country have been scrutinized for the quality and safety of their meals. Investigations reveal horrifying conditions. Kitchens that are infested with maggots, mold growing in storage areas, and expired ingredients being served to inmates. For someone living behind bars, these meals are not just unpleasant, they are a health risk. Reports from whistleblowers and former inmates detail that spoiled food often goes unreported because inmates fear retaliation, and staff may overlook or ignore violations due to understaffing or negligence. The standard prison diet is designed to meet the bare minimum caloric requirements. Yet, in reality, many inmates find the portions insufficient. A breakfast may consist of watery oatmeal or cold cereal with powdered milk, while lunch and dinner could include meat with a texture that hints at age, overcooked vegetables, or bread that is more filler than sustenance. Caloric content is often miscalculated, leaving inmates undernourished and vulnerable to fatigue, weakened immune systems, and illness. In a system where strength and alertness can mean the difference between survival and injury, this underfeeding is particularly dangerous. Because of this, inmates have developed ingenious strategies to survive on slop. Commissary items, processed snacks, ramen, or packaged goods become currency. An inmate who manages to acquire these items can trade for better portions, mix them with regular meals, or craft improvised dishes that stretch limited resources. The art of prison cooking is not about flavor. It's about efficiency, nutrition, and sometimes masking the taste of spoiled ingredients. One common method inmates use to supplement their meals is the creation of hooch, or makeshift meals from commissary goods. A package of ramen can be turned into a stew with powdered cheese, hot sauce, or even small amounts of meat or vegetables smuggled from the cafeteria. Seasoning is almost always improvised, often using packets of sugar, salt, or powdered drink mixes. These meals are eaten in the privacy of cells or shared among trusted inmates to avoid theft or conflict, highlighting how food in prison is intertwined with social dynamics and trust networks. The conditions in some prison kitchens are even more alarming. Reports from inspections reveal that flies swarm over open food containers. Mold is often found behind walls, and rodents have been spotted in storage rooms. One whistleblower described a situation where spoiled meat had to be scraped off tables and served anyway because the kitchen was under strict quotas and oversight pressure. The risk of foodborne illness is constant. Yet inmates adapt. They learn which meals are safest, which foods to avoid, and how to mask the smell or taste of spoiled portions. Survival, in this sense, becomes an ongoing education in food safety and street-smart improvisation. Inmates also face the challenge of portion control in communal dining halls. Large groups of men, all vying for limited food, means those who are slow or lower in the social hierarchy may leave meals hungry or with barely enough to sustain them. Gang affiliations, tattoos, and social standing often dictate who eats first or who gets extra portions. In this environment, having knowledge of the cafeteria schedule, guards patterns, and commissary logistics can make the difference between a full meal and a day of hunger. Health consequences of poor prison diets are severe. Malnutrition can exacerbate existing health conditions like diabetes or hypertension. Digestive problems caused by spoiled or low-quality meals are common. Some inmates develop creative remedies for mild foodborne illnesses using commissary items or cell-made concoctions. For example, sugar mixed with powdered drink packets may be used to combat mild nausea or provide energy, while oatmeal can be repurposed to create a bland dish to settle upset stomachs. These survival tactics, while clever, are not a replacement for proper medical care, which is often difficult to access. The psychological toll of inadequate and unsafe food is also significant. Mealtime in prison is not just about eating. It's a constant reminder of control and deprivation. Inmates describe the experience as humiliating, demoralizing, and stressful, yet it is a daily reality they must accept. Even the strongest inmates adapt their mindset to see food as fuel rather than comfort or enjoyment. Survival, they know, depends on flexibility, planning, and resourcefulness. Stories from former prisoners reveal that some inmates build elaborate systems to make their food last longer. One former inmate recounted combining one small portion of meat with commissary chips and powdered milk to create a pseudo-stew that could feed 2 people instead of 1. Others would trade commissary items for spices or sauces to make the most basic meals more palatable. Ingenious use of containers, improvised utensils, and careful rationing is standard practice. In this harsh environment, culinary creativity becomes a survival skill. Even within these grim conditions, moments of camaraderie occur. Inmates share meals, teach each other tricks, and form alliances over food preparation. Sharing food becomes a currency of trust, and the act of cooking together, however rudimentary, offers a sense of agency and dignity. These micro-communities, born out of necessity, show how the prison environment forces people to develop social and survival skills simultaneously. Food in prison is more than sustenance. It is a reflection of the systemic failures of the institution, the creativity and resilience of those inside, and the daily battle between survival and submission. Inmates' experiences with food reveal a harsh, often overlooked aspect of prison life that challenges the idea of incarceration as merely punishment. It is also a constant fight for physical and psychological survival. The hidden threats behind the kitchen doors. While prison food is often criticized for being bland or insufficient, the dangers go far beyond taste and calories. Behind the stainless steel doors and fluorescent lights of prison kitchens, inmates and whistleblowers reveal a much darker reality. Contamination, infestation, and systemic neglect that turn mealtime into a survival gamble. Reports and investigations have exposed horrifying conditions in many U.S. state prisons. Kitchens infested with rodents, flies, and cockroaches are not uncommon. Maggots have been found in food trays, sometimes crawling on meat, vegetables, and even desserts. Mold, too, lurks in corners and ceilings, spreading spores into the air that can make even hardened inmates sick. Inspections occasionally uncover these conditions, but corrective measures are slow, inconsistent, or non-existent. Inmates often know which kitchens are safe and which to avoid, turning food choices into a matter of strategy rather than preference. One former inmate described a kitchen in a maximum security prison as a battlefield where hygiene was optional. The pressure to meet quotas combined with understaffing meant that expired or poorly stored ingredients were served routinely. Staff often ignored violations, and those who tried to report problems faced retaliation or were dismissed as troublemakers. In this environment, Inmates quickly learn to assess meals visually and rely on experience to detect spoiled items, sometimes by smell, sometimes by texture, and occasionally by instinct alone. The consequences of these hidden threats are more than just discomfort. Foodborne illnesses are rampant. Stomach infections, diarrhea, nausea, and vomiting are common, affecting inmates' ability to work, exercise, or even maintain personal hygiene. In some cases, illness can be severe, leading to hospitalization or prolonged suffering in a system where medical care is difficult to access. An outbreak in a single prison can affect hundreds, yet bureaucratic delays and understaffing often mean that containment is slow and communication is limited. Beyond physical health, the mental and emotional toll is profound. The fear of contracting illness from food adds another layer of stress to an already high-pressure environment. Mealtime, which should be a basic moment of respite, becomes a period of vigilance. Inmates constantly negotiate their position in the social hierarchy, decide which food to eat, and calculate the risks of consuming certain items. These small, daily decisions are a reflection of the constant threat that permeates prison life. Many inmates develop survival tactics to counteract the risks of contaminated food. One common method is to inspect meals carefully and separate questionable items from the rest. Some prisoners discard spoiled portions discreetly or hide them until they can be replaced or augmented with commissary goods. Others boil, fry, or heavily season their meals to mask potential contamination, relying on heat or spices to neutralize bacteria as much as possible. These tactics are not foolproof, but they are a testament to human ingenuity under extreme conditions. Trading and bartering for safer food is another survival strategy. Commissary goods, which include packaged snacks, instant noodles, and powdered drinks, are used not only for flavor, but as a protective measure against contaminated meals. Inmates may trade items for better portions or mix them with suspicious food to reduce risk. Ramen noodles, for example, can transform a small, undercooked portion of meat into a more filling and seemingly safer meal. Even sugar packets or drink mixes are valuable. They can help mask bad taste or provide energy when real food is insufficient. In addition to improvisation, some inmates develop a network of observation and intelligence around food safety. Trusted peers often share tips about which kitchen staff are lax, which meals are likely to be contaminated, and how to manipulate the system to obtain safer food. This communal knowledge is a critical component of survival, allowing inmates to navigate a world where even basic sustenance is fraught with danger. In this way, the prison kitchen is not only a site of nourishment, but also a hub of strategy, information exchange, and social power. Historical inspections and court cases illustrate that these problems are systemic. From court clippings to whistleblower testimonies, evidence shows recurring patterns: underfunded kitchens, neglected health regulations, and a revolving door of staff that allows contamination to persist. Some prisons have faced fines or legal action, but the changes are often temporary or superficial, leaving inmates to rely on their own resourcefulness day after day. The psychological toll extends beyond fear of illness. Knowing that food is unsafe reinforces the lack of control inmates experience over their environment. Meals, a basic human necessity, become a battleground of choice, negotiation, and risk assessment. Inmates with prior gang affiliations or social leverage often fare better. They can secure more food, trade safely, and influence who eats what. Tattoos, scars, and behavioral cues serve as markers of social standing, which directly affects access to food and safety within the dining hall. Some inmates take even more extreme measures. In certain situations, prisoners will refuse to eat if they suspect contamination, relying entirely on commissary goods or stolen items. This is risky, as caloric deprivation can weaken the body and increase vulnerability to illness or violence. Others experiment with fermentation or preservation techniques using available ingredients, creating small caches of safe food that can last longer than a single meal. These strategies highlight both desperation and ingenuity, necessary survival mechanisms in a world where trust is scarce and danger is constant. Ultimately, the hidden threats of prison kitchens reveal a brutal reality. Survival in prison is as much about navigating contaminated food and systemic neglect as it is about avoiding physical violence. The ingenuity, resourcefulness, and social strategies inmates develop underscore the human instinct to survive even in the harshest conditions. The risks of illness, malnutrition, and social conflict are omnipresent, yet inmates adapt, improvise, and persevere, turning the simple act of eating into a carefully calculated exercise in survival. Survival tactics and the commissary economy. Inside the walls of U.S. prisons, survival extends far beyond avoiding physical confrontations. When meals are inadequate, unsafe, or both, inmates rely on strategy, creativity, and the informal economy of commissary goods to stay alive. The ingenuity required is remarkable, turning everyday items into lifelines. The commissary is a unique ecosystem within prison life. It provides items that supplement poor quality meals, snacks, ramen noodles, powdered drinks, canned goods, and sometimes even protein bars. For many inmates, commissary items are the difference between eating enough and going hungry. They are also a form of currency. Inmates trade, barter, and negotiate to acquire items that can be converted into better nutrition or used as leverage in the social hierarchy. Survival often hinges on understanding how to use these items efficiently. One inmate described how a single package of ramen could be stretched into multiple meals by combining it with small portions of cafeteria meat or vegetables. Powdered drink mixes and sugar packets could mask the taste of spoiled or bland food. Even cheap snacks like chips or cookies could be crushed and added to a meal to increase calorie intake or improve flavor. In this environment, cooking is less about taste and more about survival. Some inmates go further, creating makeshift recipes that resemble real meals. Using metal cups, plastic containers, and any available utensils, they combine commissary ingredients with leftovers from the cafeteria. A typical cell stew might include a piece of undercooked meat, a handful of ramen noodles, powdered cheese, hot sauce, and a splash of water heated over a makeshift stove or hot water from the sink. It may not look appetizing, but it fills the stomach and provides essential calories. Bartering within the commissary system is as much about social strategy as it is about nutrition. Inmates with higher social standing, often determined by gang affiliations, tattoos, or reputation, can secure the best items or demand trades. New inmates, or those lower in the hierarchy, may have to give up more valuable possession for basic snacks. This creates a delicate balance of power that extends beyond survival into social dynamics, influence, and trust networks. Food hoarding is another tactic. When possible, inmates store commissary items in hidden locations within their cells. These caches act as insurance against future hunger, illness, or shortages. However, this practice is risky. Discovery can lead to theft, conflict, or punishment. Maintaining a hidden supply requires constant vigilance and strategic planning. Improvisation extends to utensils and cooking tools. In the absence of proper kitchen equipment, inmates fashion scoops, spoons, and even small stoves from available materials. Metal cans are flattened to create cooking surfaces. Plastic containers hold ingredients. Hot water from sinks or the prison cafeteria becomes a makeshift method for heating food. These adaptations highlight the ingenuity required to survive in an environment where basic resources are restricted. Gang affiliations and tattoos play an unspoken role in this system. Inmates with visible gangster tattoos often command respect or fear, which can influence access to commissary goods or meal portions. These visual markers of identity are not just cultural, they are survival tools. They affect who eats first, who trades with whom, and who can negotiate for safer or more abundant food. In this sense, tattoos are both identity and strategy. Malnutrition and inadequate food intake continue to shape prison life. Even with commissary supplements, inmates often consume fewer calories than needed, leading to fatigue, irritability, and heightened vulnerability. Those who cannot access commissary items regularly are at a disadvantage, forced to survive on standard meals that may be spoiled or insufficient. This inequality reinforces social hierarchies and creates ongoing tension in communal spaces. Health management becomes part of the strategy. Inmates learn which meals are safer, how to mix foods to maximize caloric intake, and how to reduce the risk of foodborne illness. Some even create safe zones in their cells where food is prepared and stored away from contamination or prying eyes. Others collaborate, sharing knowledge about which commissary items provide the best nutrition, shelf life, and versatility. In this environment, food literacy is not just a convenience, it is survival. Creativity in survival also extends to hygiene. Inmates may wash and sanitize containers multiple times, ration water for cooking and cleaning, and carefully inspect ingredients. Improvised methods of boiling or heating food are commonplace, as heat can reduce bacterial risks. These techniques reflect both resourcefulness and an understanding of the dangers posed by prison kitchens. The psychological aspect of survival cannot be overlooked. Food becomes a currency of power, trust, and social influence. Sharing a meal, trading an item, or helping prepare a safe dish can establish alliances or cement reputations. Conversely, stealing, hoarding, or consuming contaminated food can lead to distrust, conflict, or even violence. The act of eating becomes more than nourishment. It is a social negotiation, a tactical exercise, and an assertion of autonomy within an environment designed to limit freedom. Despite the challenges, some inmates manage to thrive. Using ingenuity, negotiation, and resourcefulness, they turn scarcity into opportunity. Every meal becomes an exercise in planning, observation, and adaptability. They learn to read the environment, assess risks, and make strategic decisions about what to eat, what to trade, and how to protect themselves from both physical and social threats. Survival in prison is thus not passive. It is an active, daily strategy that requires intelligence, creativity, and resilience. In this harsh environment, food is more than sustenance. It is survival, currency, and power. Commissary goods, improvised recipes, and hidden strategies reveal the extraordinary adaptability of inmates. Behind the bars, in the dimly lit cells and shadowed hallways, prisoners transform scarcity into opportunity, finding ways to survive and even assert control within a system designed to strip them of both. The dark reality of contaminated meals. While ingenuity and commissary strategies help inmates survive, the grim truth is that prison meals remain a constant threat to health. Contaminated kitchens, spoiled food, and systemic neglect make eating behind bars an exercise in caution and vigilance. For many inmates, navigating these risks is a daily challenge that requires observation, instinct, and experience. Spoiled food is one of the most visible dangers. Meat that should have been discarded is often served due to staff shortages, oversight failures, or rigid quotas. Vegetables may be overcooked, moldy, or improperly stored. Even seemingly harmless items, like bread or packaged snacks, can be past their expiration dates or compromised by unsanitary conditions. Inmates quickly learn to spot potential hazards, slimy textures, unusual odors, or visual signs of mold. These small details can mean the difference between a meal that sustains and one that sickens. Infestation adds another layer of danger. Maggots crawling over meat trays, cockroaches in storage rooms, and rodents in corners of kitchens are not anomalies. They're recurring problems in many state prisons. Flies, too, spread bacteria, landing on prepared food and contaminating it before it reaches the dining hall. Whistleblower reports described kitchens that were visibly unclean, yet continued to operate, leaving inmates to weigh the risks of eating what was served versus going hungry. In addition to physical hazards, contaminated food has serious health consequences. Gastrointestinal illnesses such as food poisoning, diarrhea, and vomiting are common. Malnutrition compounds these issues, weakening the immune system and making inmates more susceptible to infections. Chronic underfeeding, combined with poor food quality, creates a dangerous environment where even small illnesses can escalate. Some inmates recount staying confined to cells for days after consuming tainted meals, enduring discomfort and limited medical access. To cope, prisoners adopt multiple survival strategies. Boiling, frying, or heavily seasoning food can neutralize some bacterial threats. Powdered drinks, sugar, and other commissary items are often used to mask foul tastes. Inspecting meals before consumption and discarding suspicious portions has become routine. These actions, while minor in appearance, represent critical survival skills honed through observation and experience. Social dynamics within the dining hall also play a role in food safety. Inmates with higher status, often indicated by gangster tattoos, reputation, or affiliations, have priority access to meals. They can choose safer portions or trade for better items from lower status inmates. Conversely, newcomers or those with less influence may be forced to consume meals at higher risk of contamination. In this way, food safety is not only a matter of health, but also a reflection of hierarchy and power within prison culture. The psychological toll is significant. Inmates are constantly calculating risk. Should they eat what is served or rely entirely on commissary items? Should they share food or keep it hidden for themselves? Fear of illness, coupled with the stress of undernourishment, affects mental health, increasing anxiety and tension. Even moments meant for respite, like meals, are shadowed by vigilance and uncertainty. Health management becomes a crucial skill. Some inmates develop methods to preserve food for longer periods, such as storing items in hidden compartments or wrapping them carefully to reduce contamination. Others observe staff routines to determine which meals are more likely to be safe, noting patterns in food handling or delivery. Communal knowledge is shared quietly among trusted peers, creating an underground system of survival intelligence. Court documents, archival reports, and investigative journalism reveal that these issues are far from isolated. From maggot-infested kitchens in state prisons to systemic failures and oversight, evidence shows recurring patterns of neglect and danger. Even when inspections occur, changes are often temporary or superficial, leaving the underlying risks unchanged. Inmates, therefore, must remain vigilant every day, relying on their own strategies rather than institutional protection. Despite these dangers, some inmates manage to exert control over their food environment. Creative use of commissary items, cooking improvisation, and social negotiation provide small but critical advantages. They craft meals that are safer, more nutritious, and more filling than what is served, demonstrating resilience and adaptability. These acts of ingenuity highlight the human instinct to survive, even in extreme conditions. The contaminated kitchen issue also underscores broader systemic failures. Prisons are underfunded, understaffed, and pressured to meet quotas rather than prioritize safety and nutrition. Whistleblowers often face retaliation, and reforms are slow or incomplete. Inmates are left to navigate a complex web of physical, social, and psychological risks, where even basic sustenance is a challenge. Ultimately, contaminated meals are more than an inconvenience. They are a daily, tangible threat to life inside prison walls. Inmates' ability to survive hinges on vigilance, improvisation, and social strategy. Each meal is a negotiation between risk and necessity, a stark reminder of the harsh realities of incarceration. By understanding these dynamics, outsiders can better grasp the profound challenges faced by those living behind bars, where survival depends on intelligence, observation, and constant adaptation. Ingenuity, resilience, and the fight to survive. For inmates living behind the bars of U.S. prisons, survival is a constant challenge, and food is one of the most critical arenas where that struggle plays out. By this point, it's clear that prison meals are often insufficient, contaminated, or spoiled. Yet, through ingenuity, social strategy, and sheer resilience, inmates find ways to survive, even thrive in a system that seems determined to undermine them at every turn. One of the most striking elements of prison survival is the ingenuity required to turn limited resources into sustenance. Commissary goods, instant noodles, canned items, powdered drinks, are transformed into more substantial meals through creative combinations and improvisation. Ramen noodles can become cell stew when combined with cafeteria leftovers, while powdered drink mixes, sugar, or condiments are used to mask flavor and add calories. Even the simplest snacks become essential tools in a survival toolkit. Improvised cooking tools are also critical. Inmates fashion utensils from metal cans, plastic containers, and other available materials. Sinks and hot water dispensers are repurposed as cooking stations. Every element of daily life becomes an opportunity to create, ration, or enhance meals. These adaptations demonstrate resourcefulness that rivals survival techniques in extreme environments, skills honed not for adventure, but out of necessity. Social dynamics play a crucial role in survival. Inmates with gangster tattoos, respected reputations, or gang affiliations often command access to better meals, secure trades for commissary items, or negotiate safer portions. Trust networks are essential. Sharing a meal or a hidden stash can create alliances, while theft or deception can lead to conflict or violence. These relationships demonstrate that food is not merely sustenance. It is a tool of negotiation, power, and survival within a complex social ecosystem. Psychological resilience is just as vital as physical ingenuity. Daily exposure to contaminated meals, malnutrition, and systemic neglect can take a severe mental toll. Yet inmates adapt. They learn to assess risk, strategize, and implement solutions to protect themselves. Each meal becomes an exercise in decision-making. What to eat, what to discard, and how to maximize nutrition while minimizing exposure to illness. In this environment, mental agility is a survival skill, as important as the ability to cook, trade, or hide commissary goods. Some inmates have even turned survival into subtle acts of resistance. By creating safer meals, sharing resources, and educating peers about food safety, they reclaim some control in an environment designed to strip autonomy. In these acts, ingenuity becomes empowerment. Food, normally a source of vulnerability, becomes a domain where inmates assert skill, intelligence, and agency. Despite these strategies, the risks are undeniable. Contaminated food continues to pose threats. Malnutrition affects health, and access to commissary goods is unequal. Yet stories from former inmates illustrate the resilience of the human spirit. Even in harshest conditions, prisoners find ways to survive, adapt, and maintain a sense of dignity. Survival is not passive. It is active, creative, and relentless. In many ways, the prison food experience mirrors broader systemic failures. Underfunding, understaffing, and neglect have created an environment where unsafe conditions persist. Investigations reveal recurring patterns of spoiled food, infested kitchens, and insufficient oversight. While reforms and legal actions have occurred, they often fall short of creating lasting change. Inmates are left to rely on their own resourcefulness, ingenuity, and social networks to navigate a daily minefield. At the same time, these stories highlight the remarkable adaptability of human beings. Prisoners find ways to stretch limited resources, turn commissary goods into full meals, and mitigate risks associated with contaminated food. They develop intricate systems of trust, observation, and barter, ensuring that survival is possible even under extreme constraints. These survival mechanisms reflect resilience, intelligence, and creativity in a space designed to challenge both body and mind. As this exploration comes to an end, one thing becomes clear: survival in prison is multidimensional. It is physical, as inmates navigate unsafe food and malnutrition. It is social, as hierarchy and trust determine access to resources. It is mental, as constant vigilance and strategic thinking shape daily life. Food, a basic human need, becomes the lens through which resilience, ingenuity, and determination are most visible. Ultimately, the hidden reality of prison food reveals far more than inadequate meals. It exposes systemic neglect, highlights social dynamics within prison walls, and demonstrates the extraordinary adaptability of those living in confinement. Inmates' ability to survive, innovate, and protect themselves under these conditions is a testament to human resilience in extreme adversity. Behind bars, survival is a daily battle. From maggot-infested kitchens to calorie-starved meals, inmates face threats that most of us cannot imagine. Yet, through ingenuity, strategy, and resilience, they endure. Commissary goods become lifelines, makeshift recipes a form of resistance, and every meal a test of courage and creativity. This is the untold story of prison survival, a story of adversity, resourcefulness, and the human will to survive, even in the harshest conditions.